This happened a few weeks ago. I'm 32 and had just lost my job. I thought it would be a good time to hike the Appalachian Trail. I'm not an expert, but I've hiked a bit. A solo trip seemed perfect for finding new stories for my podcast. The scenery was beautiful, and I was excited. I've never stopped thinking about what happened next. I set up camp in a remote area. It was quiet, just me and the woods. I figured it would be peaceful. I sat by the campfire recording sounds. The crackling wood was comforting. I felt relaxed. But then I heard something strange. It was a low rustling noise in the background. I figured it was just an animal or the wind. Maybe a squirrel? I shrugged it off. The next night, things changed. I was recording again, trying to capture the sounds of nature. When I heard the rustling again, louder this time, felt almost like a voice whispering. I froze. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe just my imagination after being alone too long. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling something was off. As the nights passed, the rustling continued. Sometimes it sounded closer. I would hear whispers, almost like they were echoing from the trees. I could feel my heart race. I thought I was losing it, but I had to find out more. I approached a couple of other hikers in the area. They were friendly, so I asked if they had heard anything strange. To my surprise, they nodded. They said they felt similar things. One man told me he saw shadows moving behind the trees while he was cooking. My stomach tightened. I thought about my own camping experience. Could the noise be related to something darker? I remembered some stories about the trail's history, about hikers disappearing without a trace. One night, after talking to some other hikers, I was sitting in my tent when I heard it again. This time, it felt more pronounced. Help me, it sounded like someone was pleading. I felt cold. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to ignore it, but curiosity pulled me in. I unzipped the tent a little and peeked outside. Everything seemed calm, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was watching me. I took a breath and stepped out. Then I heard those whispers again, almost like they were directing me deeper into the woods. I didn't want to go. I turned back, but just then I saw movement. Then it was there, standing at the edge of the trees, peering back at me. I blinked and it vanished. I don't know what I saw, but I felt a strong urge to find out. What was it? Why was it there? And why did it seem to be waiting for me? I stood frozen. The air felt thick. The whispers grew louder, urging me to follow. A shiver ran down my spine. I turned to go back to my tent, but the shadows swirled around me. I wanted to scream, but I could only breathe. I didn't know what to make of it. It felt like the forest itself was alive. I finally ran, not looking back. I never went back to that spot. I don't know what I experienced. I just know I left, and I didn't tell anyone what happened. I hit the trail again the next morning, determined to shake off what had happened. I thought if I kept moving, kept hiking, the strange incidents would fade into the background. But the whispers haunted me. No matter how far I walked, they clung to my mind. I made a plan. I'd reach a nearby shelter by nightfall and rest with other hikers. I needed company, someone who could share the experience, make me feel safe. As I walked, I kept my phone out, recording audio clips. I figured they would help me process what I had been feeling, a way to put the experience into words. Around noon, I stumbled upon an older couple setting up their camp. They looked friendly, and I felt an urge to share my worries. After some small talk, I brought up the whispers. They exchanged glances, and the woman's face paled. "It's not just you," she said quietly. "We've heard it too. Especially at night." My stomach sank. It felt comforting but also alarming. I wasn't imagining things. They shared stories of other hikers who had gone missing. Tales passed around campfires in hushed tones. The man leaned in, eyes serious. "You're not the first to feel called by the woods." I decided to leave them behind and continue to the shelter. I needed to get out of there. But as I moved on, the shadows felt darker, the air more oppressive. Every rustle made me jump. I couldn't shake the feeling of being followed. When I reached the shelter, it was crowded with other hikers. Their laughter filled the space, temporarily drowning out my thoughts. I tried to join in, but I felt disconnected. They talked of the views, the trails, but my mind was miles away. Still, I couldn't ignore that gnawing fear. Later, just before sleeping, I sat outside, watching the stars. I thought maybe the night would bring clarity. But the moment darkness fell, the whispers returned, louder than before, wrapping around me like a blanket. The voice shifted between pleading and warning. Go back, it urged. Leave. Terror jolted through me. I couldn't tell if I was hearing things or if the woods were truly alive. As I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, I noticed movement near the tree line. My heart raced as a figure stepped into the clearing. It was shadowy, hard to make out, like it was flickering in and out of existence. I stood up, bracing myself for whatever it was. I opened my mouth to call for help, but no sound came out. Then, in that moment of fear, the figure turned and darted back into the trees. Did you see that? I shouted to the other campers, but they shook their heads, laughing it off as a trick of the light. I felt even more isolated. Why was it only me who could see it? With trembling hands, I grabbed my phone and recorded my thoughts. I didn't have answers, but I had to document everything. This journey was no longer just about finding stories. It was about facing an unseen danger. That night, sleep eluded me. I lay wide awake in the shelter, listening to the whispers call my name, feeling the cold brush of a presence hovering just beyond my reach. I knew I needed to uncover the truth before it was too late. Then, around midnight, everything went silent. The whispers faded, replaced by an eerie stillness. Just as I began to relax, a frantic voice erupted from the trees. Help me! The plea sent chills down my spine. I wasn't alone after all. I realized then that I couldn't ignore my fear. I had to confront it head-on. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped outside, ready to find out what was lurking in the woods. As I stepped outside, the chill of the night air hit me like a shock. The faint sounds of laughter from the shelter faded, replaced by the rustling of leaves and the soft crunch of earth beneath my boots. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing only the towering trees surrounding me. Hello? I called, my voice trembling. Is someone there? Silence. I took a step forward, the beam shaking slightly in my hand. The voice had sounded so close. I could still hear the echo of help me. In my mind, I pushed aside my fear and moved deeper into the trees, calling out again. Is anyone lost? I can help. Suddenly, I glimpsed something darting between the trunks. My heart raced as I directed the light toward the movement. But it was gone. Just shadows. I took a deep breath and pressed on, determined to find whoever had called for help. Then I saw it. A figure crouched low behind a bush, shivering. My heart soared with hope. I see you. Are you okay? The figure slowly rose. It was a young woman, her eyes wide and frantic. You shouldn't be out here, she whispered. They're listening. Her voice trembled, matching the fear in my chest. You need to leave. What do you mean? Who's listening? I asked, confusion flooding my thoughts. They come for you. If you don't leave now, they'll take you too. Her gaze darted, and I could see the wild desperation in her expression. I didn't understand. What was she afraid of? Wait, I can help you. Where did you come from? But she just shook her head. Help one come, she insisted. I made a mistake staying here. You need to go. Before I could say anything else, she turned and ran into the woods, disappearing into the shadows. I was left standing alone, my heart pounding in my ears. I wanted to chase after her, to find out more, but something held me back. What had just happened? I fumbled for my phone and quickly recorded another audio clip. I saw a girl. She warned me to leave, and then she ran away. I don't know what's happening, but the whispers, they're real. Something is here. I can feel it. I retraced my steps back to the shelter, each step feeling heavier. The fear that had been creeping in now clawed at my insides. Had she really seen something? Was it the same shadowy figure I thought I had seen earlier? When I reached the shelter, I found the others still gathered around the fire, laughing. They didn't seem to notice me, or the strange energy that hung in the air. My fingers trembled as I recounted my experience to them, but they dismissed my story as paranoia. You're just tired. It's been a long hike, but I couldn't shake my feeling of dread. As I turned away from them, I felt eyes watching me from the edge of the trees. It wasn't just the whispers anymore. It felt like a presence closing in, a threat hovering just outside the light. As I settled back into my spot, I knew I shouldn't ignore the woman's warning. I had to figure out what was going on and what could be out there, watching. And then, in the stillness of the night, I heard it again, soft voices, whispering my name. I couldn't take it any longer. I had to know what they wanted. Please, I whispered into the darkness. Show yourself. When I felt it, a cold breeze sweeping through the trees, followed by a sudden drop in temperature. I felt a presence near me, but this time it was different. It was not just watching. It was close enough to touch. Before I could react, the darkness seemed to swirl around me, ready to swallow me whole. The darkness tightened around me, and my breath quickened. I could feel a weight pressing down, as if the very night was urging me to surrender to it. But I couldn't let go. Not yet. I shook my head, trying to clear my mind, the warning from the woman still lingering in my thoughts. Is anyone there? I called again, my voice stronger this time. It felt foolish and desperate, but I needed to confront whatever lurked in the woods. A rustle came from my left, and I turned instinctively, directing the flashlight toward the noise. The beam flickered over the underbrush before landing on a pile of leaves. Something shifted within, and my heart raced. Show yourself, I shouted, more forcefully than I intended. Another rustle and then silence. I could feel the anticipation in the air, thick and electric. I took a hesitant step toward the leaves, my flashlight illuminating the area more. My fingers trembled as I reached out to move the foliage. What would I find? Just then, I heard it again, my name, soft and eerie. Help me, I froze. The voice sounded like the woman's but twisted, almost as if someone were imitating her. I scanned the surrounding trees, my eyes wide. What do you want? I yelled, hoping that I could take control of the situation, or at least figure out what was happening. Then I heard a high, tinkling sound that sent chills spiraling down my spine. Came from deeper in the woods. Without thinking, I followed it. As I walked, the light from my flashlight flickered, the beam sputtering like a dying star. I felt the urge to turn back, but curiosity pulled me forward. Suddenly, a figure darted out from behind a tree. I stumbled back, raising my light, ready to fight. But it was just a deer, its eyes wide and reflecting my flashlight. My pulse raced as I reminded myself this wasn't a horror movie. But the stillness of the night returned, and the laughter became a memory. I stood there, waiting for something to happen. The cold air swirled around me again, and I shivered. Had I just imagined it? I felt foolish and scared, standing alone in the dark. Then I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, and it was too loud to be an animal. My heart pounded as I froze, unable to move. The sound was coming closer. I switched off my flashlight, knowing full well it would leave me blind but desperate to hide from whatever approached. I held my breath, listening intently. The footsteps stopped, and I could hear faint whispers merging with the leaves. My neck prickled as the voices once again coiled around my name, pulling me deeper into a trap I didn't understand. Come out, one voice chimed, sweet and inviting. We've been waiting for you. No, I gasped, but the words fell short. I was paralyzed by fright, caught between the instinct to run and an overwhelming need to know the truth about this place. When I saw it, a figure emerging from the shadows, eyes glimmering with an unnatural light. The laughter resumed, resonating all around me, mocking, as I understood somehow I had stumbled into a realm much darker than I had ever imagined. And they were no longer hiding. The figure stepped closer, and I could make out its shape. It was tall and lanky, draped in shadows like a cloak. The eyes that glowed were not comforting. They felt predatory, hungry for something I couldn't decipher. Who are you? I managed to ask, my voice trembling. It felt like I was speaking through thick glass, the words barely escaping my throat. Ah, the curious one, it said, the voice smooth yet chilling. We've been looking for a seeker, Someone willing to uncover the truths hidden here. I stepped back, unsure. I didn't come here to seek anything. I just want to leave. My heart pounded in my chest, the urge to flee pressing heavily against my resolve. That's not how it works, it replied, an unsettling smile spreading across its face. Once you enter these woods, the path chooses you, and you're already chosen. Before I could respond, I felt a rush of wind, and suddenly, I was standing at a clearing. The atmosphere shifted, the air thick with tension. I glanced back, but the figure was gone. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. My head was spinning. I had to think. There had to be a way out, a way to break whatever hold these woods had over me. I remembered the woman's warning, something about not becoming lost in the secrets of the night. As I stood there, disoriented, I noticed something on the ground, a small, weathered notebook half buried in the dirt. I knelt down to pick it up, my hands shaking. Felt wrong to touch, as if it buzzed with energy. I flipped it open. The pages were filled with frantic handwriting, sketches of strange symbols, and frantic notes about things seen and heard. Words like voices, the night cries, and lost were scrawled all over. I felt my pulse jump as I scanned through it. Someone else had been here before. Someone had encountered whatever I was facing. Find us, a note proclaimed in larger letters. Do not fear the darkness. What does that even mean? I whispered to myself. My breath caught as I heard rustling nearby. Had they returned? Panic flared, and I glanced around, unable to see anything. The whispers emerged again, this time more insistent and layered. Help us, they echoed in my ears, pulling me back into the depths of the trees. I couldn't understand what they wanted from me. Then a deeper voice broke through the noise, one that made my skin crawl. You should join us. There are things to learn, stories to tell. The air felt electric, crackling with energy. They were everywhere. I had to make a choice. Stay and uncover the terrifying truth, or run blindly back through the dark woods. And then, like a slap, the last page of the notebook flew open, revealing a drawing of something twisted and ghostly, a figure that looked strikingly similar to the one I had seen just moments before. I could feel the weight of their desires pressing in on me. Whatever was happening had only just begun, and I could feel the urgency swell. This was just the beginning, and I didn't know how to escape it. I stood frozen, my thoughts racing. The whispers continued, weaving through the trees, pulling at my heart with a strange longing. I could feel the energy thickening around me. It was as if the woods were alive, consuming my fears and doubts. I looked down at the notebook again. Find us. The words haunted me. I needed to understand, but every instinct screamed to leave while I still could. Then, from the shadowed treeline, a shape moved. I squinted, heart thumping loudly in my ears, trying to make out what it was. It stepped into the light of the clearing, a small figure, hunched over. As it approached, I could see it was a child, maybe 8 or 9, barefoot and wearing tattered clothes. Are you lost? The child asked, their voice soft yet unervingly calm. The glow of the clearing's light illuminated their face, but I couldn't recognize any emotion in their eyes. I don't know, I stammered. I came here, but I can't find a way out. Don't be scared, the child said, taking another step forward. You have to listen. They want you to join the stories. Who? I asked, glancing around nervously. My gut told me to run, but the child's presence felt disarming. The ones trapped in the woods. They know the truth. The child's voice took on a dreamy quality, as if channeling something else. You're here for a reason. I shook my head. No, I don't deny it. The child's tone shifted, an edge of urgency now breaking through the softness. You can't ignore them. They will guide you. The air around me thickened again, pressure mounting. The child reached out their hand, beckoning me closer. Instinctively, I took a step back. My gut twisted. That's when I saw it. A flicker of movement behind the child, another figure, creeping through the underbrush. My pulse raced anew. This one, larger and decidedly less childlike, moved quickly, merging with the shadows. What is that? I gasped, Just embrace it, the child replied, undeterred. They only want to help. The sounds of the forest heightened, becoming louder, as if more beings were joining us. I felt trapped, surrounded from all sides. I was caught between the familiar urge to flee and an inexplicable pull towards the unknown. Suddenly, the rustling stopped. Silence enveloped us, thick and consuming. I held my breath, the fear creeping back in. Then, to my horror, I realized the whispers had shifted. Instead of asking for help, they now sounded like screams, distant but clear. The child turned abruptly, staring at something in the darkness. "They're coming," it said, a tremor lacing its voice. "You have to choose." I could feel the ground beneath me tremble with anticipation. My heart raced as I prepared to run, but as I turned to escape, the shadows shifted again. Something or someone blocked my path forward. Panic surged. I was not alone anymore, and I didn't know what they wanted from me. All I knew was that I had to make a decision: stay and listen or sprint into the darkness surrounding me. I froze, caught in a moment of indecision. The child remained calm, their expression unchanging, while my thoughts raced with fear. The shape was closer now, a looming figure emerging from the shadows. "What do you want?" I shouted, voice shaking. The child turned to me, urgency glimmering in their eyes. "You must see. It's the only way." I glanced back at the figure, expecting it to lurch towards me. Instead, it stood very still. It seemed to be observing, its features obscured by darkness. Every instinct told me to run, to escape whatever was closing in. But what if running led me into something worse? "Why here?" I asked, my voice wavering. "What do you mean, join the stories? They live in the spaces between what you know," the child answered, stepping forward, the light flickering as if struggling to stay alive. "Listen, and they might tell you." A wind picked up, rustling the leaves overhead, and the air chilled. I shivered, pondering the child's words. The whispers grew into a cacophony of sounds, some pleading, some angry. It felt like the entire forest was alive, its pulse quickening with my own rising fear. Then, without warning, the larger shadow stepped fully into the light. I gasped at the sight. It was neither human nor beast, but something in between. Its skin was smooth and slick, light glistening off it in a way that seemed unnatural. Its eyes were hollow, yet they gazed at me with a strange intensity. "Choice is a power," it said, voice low and echoing. My skin prickled at the sound. "Will you embrace the unknown?" "Get away from me," I cried, backing further into the clearing. The child watched, unmoving, as the entity advanced slowly, deliberately. "You're not real," I told myself, willing my legs to move. "I am as real as your fear," the creature stated, its tone both mocking and soothing. "You must confront that which you cannot explain." The ground vibrated, and I could no longer tell which way to go. The whispers resumed, louder now than before. I felt their pain, their stories piercing through the fog of my thoughts. "Make your choice, but remember," the creature said, glancing toward the child. "You already know too much." With that final statement, both figures stood eerily still before me, waiting. I noticed a path opening behind the child, a narrow trail that led deeper into the woods. It was as if they were inviting me to step forward into the dark embrace of the unknown. Just as I was about to bolt down that path, the earth shook beneath me. I stumbled, feeling the weight of the decision heavy in my gut. Then I spotted something glinting in the grass. It was the edge of a small mirror, reflecting the light just enough for me to see my own face twisted in fear. "Choose quickly," the child urged. "They won't wait forever." As the entity started moving closer, the whispers transformed into screams once more, resonating deep within me. I had to act. I could either face the darkness ahead, or surrender to the fear that froze me in place. And in that moment, I realized both choices led to stories waiting to be uncovered, yet one felt more dangerous than the other. Suddenly, the ground quaked once more, and I knew I had to decide now. I took a shaky breath. I can't just stand here, I thought. The creature loomed closer, its movement both mesmerizing and terrifying. I forced myself to look at the narrow path behind the child. It seemed to beckon me, but my instincts screamed for me to turn away. Not yet, I whispered to myself. Just not yet. The whispers grew louder, then cut off abruptly. An eerie silence followed, pressing down on me. I turned back to face the creature, heart racing. The child still stood as a sentinel, eyes wide and watchful, as if they could sense my struggle. Where does that path lead? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Into the stories that dwell within you, the child replied, stepping aside slightly. I saw flickers of light dancing in the underbrush, momentarily illuminating strange shapes that twisted and turned. They looked like shadows of memories I hadn't lived yet. Suddenly, the creature erupted into motion. Embrace uncertainty, called out, lunging forward as if to remind me that time was ticking. A surge of defiance shot through me. I will not be a pawn in your game, I yelled. The words left my mouth before I had even thought them through. The forest seemed to recoil, the air tinged with a mix of anger and surprise. But the moment the sound was out, nothing changed. The child didn't flinch, and the creature continued its approach, undeterred. Perhaps defiance only fueled the shadows. I needed a different strategy. Maybe the answer lay within the memories I had suppressed, the ones the child spoke of. I steadied myself, forcing my trembling hands into the pockets of my jacket. I could feel the small mirror's edges press against my palm, almost urging me to look. What stories? I pressed, looking directly at the child. What do they want from me? Everything, the child replied, their expression unwavering. Every fear, every hope. Before I could respond, the creature extended a slender arm, pointing towards the path. The choice is yours, but you cannot hide, it echoed. You are already part of the tale. With a sudden rush of clarity, I pulled the mirror from my pocket and held it before me. The reflective surface flickered and shimmered. I caught a glimpse of the forest, but it wasn't the one I stood in. This place was filled with vibrant colors and familiar faces smiling, yet somehow distant. When I saw it, a figure standing behind me in the reflection. Panic bloomed in my chest as I turned around, but there was nothing there. Just the cold chill of the whispering wind and the flutter of leaves. Did you see it? I asked, heart racing. Did you see who was with me? The child nodded sharply as the creature paused. That is your burden, said the entity, less threatening now but just as enigmatic. To remember, to forget, to understand. I lowered the mirror, feeling its weight. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, I admitted. You must understand, the child insisted. Stories live in the cracks of forgotten truths. Embrace what you've buried, and the path will be clear. The ground trembled again, louder this time. The air buzzed with tension, and I realized the forest was waiting, holding its breath for my next move. And then I made my decision. I stepped toward the path behind the child, my heart racing and mind swirling. Just as I did, the creature lunged again, but this time I was ready. Stop, I shouted. Before I could reassess what I was doing, darkness rushed around me, swallowing everything whole. I felt myself falling, the ground falling away beneath my feet, and the darkness wrapped around me like a suffocating blanket. I instinctively squeezed my eyes shut, fearing what might come next. Then, like a sudden gust of wind, the space around me shifted. When I finally opened my eyes, I was no longer in the forest. I stood in a small, dimly lit room. The air felt heavy with dust and age, and the faint smell of wood and damp crept into my senses. The walls were lined with bookshelves, crammed with worn volumes whose spines were faded from time. What is this place? I murmured, almost to myself. The archive, the child's voice chimed in, as if pulled from the shadows. I turned to see them standing beside an old wooden desk piled high with papers and photographs. The creature was gone, replaced by an unsettling calm that hung in the air. Why am I here? My voice came out shaky, echoing slightly in the quiet. Here lies the stories you wish to forget, the child said, glancing at the cluttered desk. You have to sift through them. I walked toward the desk, and the odd feeling of déjà vu washed over me. It was as though I had been here before, though I couldn't quite place when or why. What am I supposed to do with them? I asked, picking up an old photograph. It showed a family, smiling and carefree, but their faces seemed distorted, like they were being swallowed by shadows. Face what you've avoided, the child advised, their gaze steady. The memories are your key. But be cautious. Some of them are still alive. A chill ran down my spine. Alive? I looked around the room, noticing the flickering shadows that danced at the edges of my vision, almost as if they were watching me. I glanced back at the desk, my pulse quickening. What could it mean for memories to be alive? This is more than just a collection of stories. I senti it. I pressed, my heart thudding in my chest. They want something from me. What is it? They want the truth, the child replied softly, before gesturing towards a dusty book. Each page will pull you in. Some pages contain beauty, others pain. Choose wisely. I picked up the book and felt a pulse within its spine, as if it had a heartbeat of its own. The air shifted again, heavy and electric. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from somewhere behind me, breaking the tension. It sounded like something had fallen, or worse, like something had entered the room. Listen, I whispered, my heart racing. What was that? Time is running out, the child urged, their expression now serious. You have to decide quickly. The archive protects you, but only whilst you keep reading. With a deep breath, I opened the fragile book, pages whispering like leaves in the wind. I began to stumble through the contents, each word reverberating in my mind, but the feeling of being watched intensified. Something was lurking just beyond the door, waiting for its moment to strike. I paused on a particular passage, the words drawing me in. I could almost feel a story unraveling around me, but it was no longer just ink on paper. I could sense emotions bleeding through the text: fear, loss, hope, and that S when I realized I wasn't just reading. I was becoming part of it. Before I could grasp the full weight of my discovery, the door creaked open, revealing a dark silhouette. My breath caught in my throat. Just as I turned to run, a haunting voice echoed through the room. Your story isn't finished yet, and then everything went black again. I blinked awake in my tent, the weight of sleep still resting on me. Slowly, I gathered my thoughts, grappling with the disorientation of my mind. I was back in the same spot on the trail where everything had spiraled out of control, the rustling trees, the whispers calling my name. Had it all been a dream? The archive, the child, the eerie creature, was it merely my brain conjuring figures from the depths of fear? I squeezed my eyes shut, willing away the uncertainty. But deep down, I knew that I'd been touched by something out there in the woods. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the ground. I exited my tent, the smell of damp earth filling my lungs. A crackling fire caught my attention. A small group of campers had gathered near the shelter, laughter floating in the air. My heart felt heavy as I recalled the chilling warnings and the darkness that surrounded them. Could I really walk away as if nothing had changed? Approaching the fire, the warm glow contrasted sharply with the cold dread that still clung to me. The others didn't seem to notice that I was off-kilter. I tried to laugh along, but the whispering seemed to echo more loudly now that I was surrounded by the mundane chatter of hikers. Their tales of the trail felt hollow compared to the depth of what I had experienced. Determined to cast off the grip of my fears, I settled on a log, forcing a smile. Do you guys ever hear weird noises while you camp? I asked, my voice steady despite the tremor in my heart. The laughter dipped, and one of the hikers raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I hesitated but pressed on. I've been hearing these whispers, like they were warning me, calling me. Sometimes I feel like something's out there watching me. The group glanced at one another, unease flickering in their eyes. The man from before cleared his throat, the one who had mentioned shadows before. Weird things happen in these woods. They say it's haunted, you know. I nodded, heart pounding. But what does it mean? Why are we drawn here? Their responses were vague, wrapped in a mixture of morbid curiosity and dismissive chuckles, as if they didn't want to delve too deep into the dark energy that danced around us. A couple even tried to change the subject, and I could see their eyes skirt away from the topic. Suddenly, the air became charged again, the laughter dying down. Someone had stepped too close to the tree line, and I caught sight of a flicker just a moment, but it was enough. I remembered the figures, haunting shapes lurking just beyond the edge. Does that happen to you? I asked, heart racing. Do you see things in the woods? They exchanged glances, dismissing my concerns. It's just shadows, someone said, laughing as if my fear was just another campfire story. But it carried an unsettling weight. I turned to look back at the trees. What was it that I had stumbled upon? The feeling of being watched was trickling back, creeping over my skin like icy fingers. I excused myself from the group. My feet led me back to the place where I had witnessed those shadows that had flickered and danced and laughed at me. I wasn't ready to confront whatever lingered there, but I couldn't ignore the call. As I stepped deeper into the woods, a familiar rustling rose from the underbrush. The whispers returned once more, entwined with the chatter of my mind. Help us. Join us. But this time, I held steady, planting my feet into the earth. I don't know if I was ready to confront the darkness, but I couldn't turn back. My instincts had drawn me into this strange and twisted story, and I was determined to find its beginning. Then I saw her, the girl from my vision. Her fight or flight instincts mirrored my own. You're still here? She whispered, stepping closer, eyes frantic. You shouldn't have come back. What do you want? I asked, feeling the pull in my gut. What is this place? She hesitated, eyes darting nervously. Choices, she said, voice trembling. You have to make a choice before it's too late. Suddenly, without warning, the laughter of the shadows filled the air, seeping into the depths of my consciousness. Join us, embrace your story, they cooed, taunting, as they circled around me. Lost again in the uncertainty, a shiver coursed through me. I felt the pressure to choose, but how could I? The answers I sought felt just out of reach. Perhaps some darkness could only remain a mystery. As I looked into the depths of the forest, the shadows danced in a hypnotic rhythm, taunting, teasing. And all I knew was that I had become part of an unknowable narrative, one that would follow me even beyond the exit of these woods. What haunted me wasn't just the stories of those gone, but the ones that were still untold. And maybe in that ambiguity lay the real truth. I would have to live with that, walking the line between acknowledgement and denial. Some stories would always leave questions unanswered, echoing through the trails of my mind. But I finally accepted I wouldn't run away from the darkness. I would stand here, caught between the known and the unknown, listening as the whispers returned once more.